Welcome to Dr. Lottie's Science with Soul, the podcast that transcends the boundaries between science and spirituality. Prepare to be uplifted, transformed, and awakened to create a path to healing your own life physically, emotionally, and spiritually by bridging the gap between science and soul. Welcome to Dr. Lottie's Science with Soul. Today's guest is Sarah Thomas, B.S., M.A.C., L.A.C., who is an inspired healer and educator and owner of Clarity Acupuncture in Asheville, North Carolina, where she has performed over 10,000 stone, crystal, and acupuncture hybrid treatments with many beloved patients. Sarah developed North Carolina's first studies in mineral healing program and teaches yearly at earth medicine conferences and healing summits across the U.S. She is the founder and lead instructor at the Upper Clarity School of Stone Medicine, which has served as a loving alchemical container for thousands of students across the world. Students gain full certifications as crystal healing and stone medicine practitioners with roots in ancient Daoist wisdom and spiritual practices. Sarah's own Tao is to resurrect the vast knowledge and uncharted potentials of healing and awakening with stones. So welcome, Sarah. I'm so excited to have you as a guest today.
Hello, nice to see you.
And how did you get into working with crystals and, learning about the healing properties of stones?
I do feel like this is a soul mission, and I do feel like my soul is larger than just this name in this body in this lifetime, even in this realm on this earth. And I do feel like I am a visitor here, honestly. Like, I love earth and I love this place so much. It's so near and dear to me, but I do think home has been other places, other times, other realms, realities. And I do feel like, just to be honest, right off the bat, fully transparent, I do feel like I'm a little bit here on a mission, and that this crystalline consciousness is awake in many worlds, many timelines, many realities. And I think part of my job here this time is to speak about things that I know from before even this time. So yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Did you ever have a sense of like coming from a different place or in the meditation, seeing other dimensions?
Yeah, definitely. I have a deep, strong feelings of home in and around some other realms. And I do, like I said, I love this place. I couldn't be more happy to be with Gaia. Uh, but I have had definitely some deep, I have had definitely some deep transmissions that I really am not of this place, you
Mhm.
know, originally. And I hope that's okay to start out with. Just start
Yeah,
with a bang, I guess.
absolutely. This is
I'm
the
sure many
podcast
people
for
feel
this.
that way.
Yeah, nothing is off limits. We are, quite miracle beings here on Earth, and of course, we have other realms and dimensions of existence out there.
Yes.
Now, crystals often get labeled as, woo-woo by people who are not aware of healing properties and that. Where do you think the perception comes from that people think that it's, woo-woo to work with stones or crystals? I understand that there are some ancient hidden roots to this belief. And can you share more about these?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that crystals got this woo woo tag. Crystals and stone medicine got this, I would say, probably around the 70s. And I think that, the new age revolution and the bang of the 60s, and then the way that kind of filtered out into the 70s, and the way that esoteric knowledge was like organically forming in this world, but also I think was being transplanted sometimes as a psychological operation too, to confuse us. And um but that awakening around esoteric knowledge, that when it came into the 70s, the 60s, you know, what we got was like, at first was a lot of white men. It was first a lot of old white men actually channeling information about, Atlantis and Lemuria and these other worlds and star beings. And there's many books from that time of like almost like Seth, like it would be like a man in like a suit, but it looks like he should be like on Wall Street or something. But he started channeling these books about Atlantis and Lemuria. And a lot of that is where the crystal ideas came back, that we could actually do something with crystals. It wasn't just plants and herbs and trees, that we could actually do something with crystals. And I collect those books. Actually, I love collecting old books from the 60s and 70s about, these strange channelings about crystals. But I think when people look in that and they see, Adamus from the sixth dimension is telling you to hang an etheric crystal in the middle of your room and send, pink mermaids into it and stuff. I think it was easy for people to get absorbed into that, but then also back up and look at it and kind of laugh and be like, that is really silly. I think that's where things started to get what we call woo woo. And it really goes on today. I think people still think crystal and stone medicine is really strange and out there and not valid. But that is interesting to think about if you just back up and think about it. Like, why would all of the other earth medicines, nuts, seeds, trees, grains, all of that be valid? Plants, except stones? Like, why would it just be like everything was valid and had a reason and a purpose and had some kind of medicine offer except stones? So just to back up and look at that is kind of interesting. Like, why would we just leave this one thing out? And now you still hear all the time on podcasts and TV and everything how ridiculous crystals are. And I think part of what we're doing here today and what I'm doing in life is just to like kind of stand back and look at those assumptions. We really live on assumptions, but to stand back and look at them and be like, what is the frame? Like, why do I believe this? What is the context? Where did this come from? Because if, the billboards that we grew up around since we were kids, I mean, we're showing advertisements in magazines of like your grandma handing you an emerald or your aunt handing you like a ruby for medicine rather than seeing aspirin, Tylenol, Bayer, like all of the pharmaceuticals. I mean, it's just the programming, right? If we have the programming that these certain medicines work and these other ones don't, but if we grew up in the indoctrination that the natural ones worked, it would be totally normal for us, you know? So
Yeah, no, I hear you. So I took this gemstone weekend class when I was in med school, and it was so fun. And there were tiny, tiny little crystals. I mean, the size of a pea that we were working with. And I was lying on the table, and then a classmate was working on me. And I didn't know what stone she was using or where she was holding it over my body. But every time she moved the stone, like from the top of my head, on the side of my temple, and only on the left side, and every time it was a soda light. I remember it was a soda light. And every time she moved it, it was my left side across, and she came across the left temple and my left eye. My left eyelid would flutter every single time. It's just fascinating, not with any other stone, but with that stone on that side, that's what would happen. And like everybody came over to, this is so fascinating because whatever was that was going on with that eye at that time. But it was so fascinating because it was like black on white. Yes, the stones actually affect our physical being. And it was fascinating.
that is an amazing story. I love that because it's like once we have an experience, we can begin to have faith in something. But until we have an experience, it is just kind of an abstraction. That is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm
And I
glad
know
you got
somebody
that.
else who was at the school, and she said she would have seizures, and she would take a mother pearl, and whenever she felt she was going to have a seizure, she would put the mother pearl basically on her third eye, and it would stop the seizure. So she said it was tremendous help. She always carried her little mother pearl in her pocket. So, I mean, it's just fascinating when you hear people, and having experienced myself too, but hearing other people's stories of how beneficial these gemstones, the stones and crystals in general can be for
Yeah,
people.
it is so. I love the stories. I love the stories. And one of my greatest teacher in Taoist stone medicine always says that he wishes he had more stories because he feels that a lot of people are interested in stones and crystals, but they don't actually practice it. They don't actually do it. They don't actually try it. And so the more real stories we get, the better. So I'm always trying to collect those. That's fascinating. But pearl has now, I mean, been clinically proven in kind of extensive studies to calm the Shen, calm the heart spirit, work on the nervous system, work on the neurological system. So it's just in the stone. It's just now proven.
Right. It's funny because it was, all of us that took that gemstone class, we were all, wearing different necklaces. Sometimes people would trade, oh, can I borrow the mother pearl, please? And it does have a very calming effect on you. So it's really interesting how it changes, and it was noticeable.
Yeah.
And we would put, I think, was it jasper we would put in our shoes to stay awake or concentrate, or I can't remember what it was, but it was literally just pea sizes, but it was like it gave us energy. I don't know, is that the jasper that it's almost like you had coffee, and we put them at the sole of our foot, kind of.
Oh wow.
I
That
can't
is
remember.
amazing.
Yeah,
I,
so anyway, yeah, so crystals are amazing. I mean, just
mhm.
fascinating how they affect us, just like you said, like the herbs and everything else. Why wouldn't the crystals? They carry energy too.
Yeah, and if you look at ancient sites in the world and stone circles and even pyramid structures, there is a lot of good evidence that those were being built initially to help agriculture. And when people stopped moving around to hunt and being nomads and moving all around, and they wanted to stay in one place and they wanted to, grow crops, they realized that if they did a stone circle or if they did a step pyramid, they would get the electromagnetic radiation from the stones, and that was having an effect on the seeds and making the crops grow bigger and um, really helping everything. So you're getting this. I mean, if you just look at purely matter to matter, the 3D physics of it, you're getting these electromagnetic fields from the stones that are being generated. And then because they're conductors, they absorb, store, and transmit energy. And there's also all that energy running through the earth. What's going to conduct those multiple energy lines from the earth, and a big conductor like a stone. So it's just, even just on that level of like pure science, there's a book called Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty, that is all about how all of the stones in these stone circles really enhance the growth of plants.
Wow, that's fascinating. That makes sense, though. I mean, it's like they were so much more in tune with the earth, and then we created Western civilization and sort of forgot who we are,
Yeah.
right? Where we're at now, and now we have to go back to the roots, basically, to save the earth and save ourselves too, right? And it's fascinating how all these methods have been forgotten.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love how you put it that way, that we have to go back to save the earth by going back to these roots and foundations. And if you look through the eyes of a stone, like if you let yourself become a stone and like look through the eyes of a stone, what a stone is doing is it's very tuned into the forces of nature. It's like feeling all of these impulses in the earth, and it's feeling all these impulses from the sun. And there's all these crystals in the earth that are stored potential, like coiled springs, holding all this information that's binary information, like electromagnetic fields, ones and zeros, but it's also non binary information, which is information and data that goes beyond um, it goes beyond what the mind can comprehend. It goes into that heart field of non-binary information, which includes like all of the things that we know as mantra, song, blessings, prayers, energies, incantations, like all of those things that you can't quantify, but they are, make up the living tapestry of everything that we truly are. So stones are feeling all of that. They're not just feeling the sun come up. And that's why all these ancient sites are, the whole purpose of the ancient sites too is to be aligning to the forces of nature. And if you're a stone,
Mhm.
that's what you're feeling. You're feeling those impulses from the earth. Like, when is that next crystal going to go off? When is that coiled spring going to release? Like, when is this code that has come from the sun that has gone into the stones going to become activated? And that's what they're feeling, like the seasons, the sun coming up and down, the light, all of that, which it is true. Like, if we tune into that, we can get more tuned into all of nature, which we do need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in Taoism, stones are said to have a soul. and therefore they too have a purpose and are on a spiritual path. And what does that really mean? And is that different from plants or other aspects?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? To think of, I mean, first you have to accept that a stone is conscious or a living being of some kind. And maybe it's a different kind of consciousness. Like Nikola Tesla said once, stones are living beings. They just live a very different life than we live, you know? It's hard to understand them as living beings, but if you accept that they are living things, and I will tell you the truth is, I'll tell you the truth. The truth is, the higher we go in consciousness, the more we realize that all things are alive. You know, my lamp is alive. The light bulb in the lamp is alive. Like when you really shoot up in levels of consciousness, you see that everything is alive. It's all part of this oneness, you know. So why wouldn't stones be in that? But when we accept that they're alive, we can be like, well, you know, they live on these very long cycles of time. Like a stone may be formed over thousands, millions, or even billions of years. I mean, I have stones that are in the 2 to 4 billion range of old. There are stones on this planet that are said to be 4 billion years old. And I don't know how long things have really been around. I don't know how much modern science like messes up us up and takes us down the wrong path. Like I think we have a lot to relearn actually, but stones do, we do know they live on much longer cycles of time than plants, trees, flowers, right? So in these long cycles of time, they have these long trajectories, and we think of them as having a plan. Like they have a plan for their lives too. There's a reason that they're here, and they evolve over these long cycles to live out that plan, to experience their own destiny,
Yeah. I mean,
have
it's
its
just,
own destiny.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it's amazing.
amazing.
Yeah, just like even when you have a stone that you pick up from a mountain, maybe a stone speaks to you. I mean, just think of that was there for thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. And that day that you pick it up is a huge day in its destiny to move into partnership with a human or whatever it's going to do next.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to think about it that way, right? Because as kids, you're playing outside and picking up rocks, putting them in your pockets. I don't know. At least that's what I did when I was a kid. But it's
Yeah.
fascinating to think that, you moved the rock. It might have been there for thousands of years and you're out in the woods and you pick it up and bring it home and now it's on your shelf.
Yeah. Think what a big deal that is to the rock.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. How is what you do different from a typical crystal healer when we think about, that phrase of being a crystal healer?
Yeah, it's like what do we think about when we think of being a crystal healer? I don't think there's many of them out there. I teach big classes. I have a big community of people interested in this, and I will often ask the class, like, how many of you know a crystal healer that's all they do is a crystal healer and they have a practice? And honestly, just if 2 or 3 people will raise their hands. And then I'll say, how many of you know a crystal healer that's really good, that's really effective? Like, and maybe one person or 0 people will raise their hands. And so there's not that many out there. I think the crystal healers that are out there call themselves Reiki practitioners or call themselves massage therapists or call themselves acupuncturists or call themselves something else. And they're kind of doing the crystal medicine as like an adjunct, adding it on. And in a way, I'm like that because I'm an acupuncturist and have had a deep love of Daoism and Chinese medicine for 20 years. And for me too, the crystals became an extension of that work. And I started to look at the needles differently. And I started to look at the meridian system differently. And I had a big awakening at one point in my life, like a big blast change in consciousness that everything that I was doing on the body with the needles and the meridians had a holographic brother that was much bigger, which is just how would you work on the earth. The earth is all these meridian systems and ley lines, and the stones are the meridians and system ley lines, like the needles for those. And I started to affect the chi with crystals and stones a lot more than the needles. And I always had the needles as a base because I love the needles and I just want to use all the tools in my toolbox. But when I started to add crystals and stones to that practice, everything really started to take off for me as far as the work that I really want to do is spirit level work, soul level work, as deep as possible work. And the stones really brought me deeper, deeper, deeper. And they also open up portals in the room. Stones are really portals. They are beings that can be in one density or dimension and then bridge to another density or dimension, which is the definition of a woo. Actually, if you go back to the ancient, um, the original meaning of that. But because stones do that kind of open portal between worlds, you also get, more other frequency in the room, more other helpers in the room, people seeing their passed away grandmother, people feeling their ancestors. And I feel like it gives these higher spiritual beings also a way in that they didn't have when I was just using a stainless steel needle from a factory. So the stones are like truly, literally open another dimension in the space. And I think what I do is a little bit different from what we think of a regular crystal healer, or just how we're programmed to think of a crystal healer is you're kind of putting these crystals on the chakras that are like the colors of the chakras. And, um, I'm going to be super blunt and reductive, and then trying to kind of like open the third eye or open the crown chakra so that you can kind of like take off into these metaphysical experiences. Um, and in a way I'm doing that, but I think what I'm doing is it's a lot more grounded. It's a lot more based in ancient Taoist medicine, real physical, emotional, spiritual, and soul level healing that feels like it just feels so much deeper. It feels so much deeper. I could answer this for a long time, but it just feels deeper.
Right. No, it's
Yeah.
really fascinating, and how you also feel that the stones connect with the spirit world in a different way than if you just use the needles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are, you know, there are really good, there's really good science coming out that the template for life and what makes life able to exist is actually crystalline material. You may have heard about this, or in the book The Rainbow and the Worm.
I
um,
read it.
Amazing. She talks
I
about it.
read it years ago, yes.
Yeah, she's
I
like,
was
what?
so excited about it because it shows that we're all, it's electricity that
Mhm.
we send messages. It's not just a biochemical reaction because
Yeah.
it's the crystalline, and when you think about it, computers have chips in them, right?
Mhm.
Computer chips, crystals, and it's a way of storing information, sending information. So of course crystals are going to work. It's just a matter of overcoming the pharmaceutical industry, right? Because they kind of have a lockdown on, how we treat people. And when you go to medical school, it's this is how you treat this condition and you use this medication, right? And
Yeah.
so you kind of have to work these other alternative, as we call it, methods into, like you're doing with acupuncture, you're working that into that treatment plan. But
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to, become more mainstream, all these different modalities, right? Laser frequencies, sound therapy, singing bowls, crystals, because it's amazing when you imagine putting it all together, how different medicine would look in the future.
Totally. I mean, it is and will be a quantum leap. It's just as soon as we embrace this stuff, and it does take a leap of faith because, as you said, we're conditioned in the West to do something completely different. But once we do, it is just you just quantum take off. It's the electricity, it's the light, it's the biophotons, it's the crystalline structure, it's the order. It's realizing everything in the body is awake, intelligent, connected, and connected to everything else. And we will really take off. And how many people have been suppressed? How many people they put things together like this and these realizations, and then they're suddenly gone or taken down or suppressed. So we know it's powerful.
Yeah. Um, So how do you, when you're working, how do you know, I think that everybody out there listening is going to be saying, how do I heal? What is like some common things that, people could use a stone for, let's say, they have headaches or they have anxiety or painful menstruation, cramps or something. And, what is some things that you see often that people could use a crystal or gemstone for?
If you look at all the body systems and all the spirit systems, if you go to the deepest ones, you'll get resonance with stones. So in the deepest ones, what we have in our deepest, like of all our energetic forms, is kind of our spirit and soul is the deepest. And it's kind of the work of Carl Jung. If you look into the subconscious, the unconscious, what is repressed, what is suppressed, you will find the answers to those in stone medicine. Because when you go deeper into the self, you have to go deeper into the earth to find the answers for that. So it's like, what is in our Akashic records? What is our destiny? You know, what is in our kidney stored as our destiny, that like in that lockbox that's like, this is what you're here to do. What are our dreams telling us? What are our genetics? What's our constitution? What was passed down to us from our parents? Our karmas, right? The programs, the limiting beliefs. It's all of these things are writing our lives. You know, this is what's writing our lives, all of these things. But to get those, to unearth, you know, to become conscious, to see is to be free. So one of the things that stones do is they get those from those repressed and suppressed places and draw them out into the consciousness, you know. So going deep is possible, but if you just look at it as body systems, right? The hormonal system is an example. That's just, it's a very deep system within us. It's, you don't just go to urgent care and say I have a hormonal issue and they're like, take this and you're better the next day, right? Hormones are like, it's going to take a few months, even a few years. Like they're like a big gear in the body that it's hard to get it turning. Oh, but once you get it turning, it's very powerful. That's what the hormone system is like. So if you look at the whole hormone system, it really strongly resonates with stone medicine. And so, for instance, if you were wanting to work with the thymus gland, there is a stone called Morganite, and Morganite is like the pink emerald. It's basically an emerald, but it's pink, right? And so it has a level 8 hardness. Now that's very hard. So the harder something is, the deeper it's going to go. And we need these hard stones to get as deep as the hormonal system. And Morganite, the pink beryl, is the one that goes directly to the thymus. So we can do all kind of work with the thymus, like whether you have autoimmune thymus, like the myasthenia gravis, or you are just wanting to improve your immunity or make your whole system work together. You could do a Morganite elixir. You can do a Morganite pendant that hangs at this place, but there will be a nice resonance. And like, I mean, it is the medicine for that of all the earth medicines. You know, it's able to get there and get that deep. And you know, everything about vibrational medicine, quantum medicine, the whole language is resonance. It's when two things come into resonance, they can exchange information. And so you need that resonance. So just think, if it's something deep, you need stones.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Um, and how do you, how do you find the right stones? Like if you people just go to a crystal store and buy the crystal, is there a difference about the way that stone was extracted from the earth or shaped or polished or, all those things? Does that matter? Or are there certain stones that we should look for
You
to
know,
get a
we
certain quality?
totally. So, you know, how do you find the properties of an herb or a plant? You go through the classifications. Like, what are the constituents of the plant? You look at all of those classifications. Stone medicine has all of those classifications too. You look at the crystal structure, you look at the chemical composition, you look at the hardness, you look at the level it was formed at, and you have all these scientific classifications. But then you have this other group of classifications that is, you know, a scientist may be skeptical of it because it moves into the world of energy, frequency, and vibration. One of those is the law of signature, right? We know that a mullein plant, how the little yellow leaves look like ears. And then we find out that the mullein plant actually treats earaches and ear infections. So stones do all of that too. They have these other classifications that are kind of based in form and function and what the earth gave us the clues about. The earth gives us the clues, you know. Color means something very significant. So when you put up all the classifications, you could meet a stone from another world and know what it does. You can determine its properties from its classifications. But I think when you go to a crystal shop, I still think to this day that you should totally just pick out what you're attracted to. I mean, you never pick up anything by accident. There's always a vibrational attraction. And it's like that process of just trusting that you're picking up what's right for you and just become conscious of the doubt in the mind. Just be okay, the mind's gonna doubt. It's just one of its things that it always does. But and then just stick with that thing that vibrationally attracted you. There's a whole reason it attracted you, right? And then you can work with it intuitively. And, you know, often you don't need a teacher.
No, it's very interesting because I mean, if I go into a crystal store, it's just I don't know, but that stone, right? It just sort of speaks to you. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, come, you need to come home with me. But it is interesting because we are attracted to different stones and the way they feel when you pick them up.
Mhm.
First you might be attracted to a color or something, but then it feels a certain way too. Like you pick it up and it feels good in your hand, or it has a certain, I guess it resonates with who I am when I pick that up. And if it's good for me, it's like, it's fascinating.
Yeah, sometimes we pick up a stone and we're like, we can't put it down. It's like, it's just our hands like gripped
Right.
around it. We're like, I'm going to bed with this. It's just like your body's just soaking it up and you may have
Yeah.
no idea why.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So, like when you have stones, people talk about you have to put them out in the moonlight or the sunlight, or you have to, wash them, some stones. How do you, do you need to clean them or do these certain things to keep them sort of active?
I think you do. I think they like a bath, they like an energetic refreshment. And stones are seriously empathic. They're like little babies, so they they sense extremely weak fields. That's a scientific way of saying that they can like pick up anything. You can make something tiny little harmonic oscillator out of gold and quartz, and it will be able to sense things far out into space or far in the universe. So they're very empathic. They're picking up a lot. So I do like to cleanse and recharge. And the thing about it is that it can get very complicated if you're looking at, what is the right way to cleanse and recharge every stone. I've had students in the past try to make these giant charts of everything I've said about clearing and recharging so they can just have all that information, because different stones like different things. And if you go back into some of the old Taoist information, it can be very, very interesting. Like tourmaline, for instance, would like to get cleansed and recharged for 3 nights in a row, being outside at sunset every night for 3 nights in a row. Like, what is it about sunset for tourmaline? And where did they come up with that? Like, who says that? Even if something's from an old book or an old master said it, you still have to wonder, like, what if somebody else said something else? But it can get very complicated. So is I just what I do is really focus on the earth. I don't focus on the moon or water or putting it in spring water or salt water or anything. I focus a lot on putting it on the earth, because if it's on the earth outside, Mother Earth has a way of decharging anything that it doesn't need anymore and uploading it with the things that it will need going forward. And so my best approach, like all around, is you're not going to go wrong by just putting a stone in a special place on the earth. If you have your little patch, or you can make a little stone circle and put your stones in that and just leave them out overnight, and they'll be able to feel the forces of the earth and the forces of the celestial realm as well, and just do that clearing and recharging kind of into and with the earth.
Yeah, I know that's a great way to do it. Could you, if you live, let's say, in New York City and you're ready to can't put it outside, could you put it like in a pot, like in a plant pot?
Yeah, you can put it in a plant pot, or another thing we like to do is put it in a bowl of like hematite stones, or on a large piece of hematite. Hematite is just that stone that's just full of iron, and it will have that magnetic connection to the earth. And it's almost like your little portal to the earth right there. You can cleanse and recharge your stones overnight in that hematite.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Have you ever witnessed any particularly transformative experience, having worked on somebody with gemstones, crystals, and seen, an improvement in their health or any other changes? Is there any
Yeah.
stories you could share?
Well, I have done thousands and thousands of stone treatments. So I have seen many, many wonderful, undescribable, mysterious, wild, epic transformations in people. Um, so many tears, like so many changes, so much emotional movement. I guess one story that's just coming to mind, just because I said tears, is I worked with this therapist. She was a brilliant therapist, and we worked together for a while, and she had a really tough relationship with her dad. She was a grown woman, and she was so smart. as like everything we would talk about in approaching her mental emotional well-being, her healing path, it was like she could just break it down into the smartest therapy speak, about the attachment patterns and this, and I know that, and I know this. And it became so intellectual all the time. Like she had it all figured out. But the pain like wasn't moving, because it's just, she would just go into her head about it all the time. But I knew that like we needed to make the change. And this woman never cried because it was just always emotional. I mean, it was always so intellectual. It was like her way of dealing with it was just to have it all figured out. Um, and there is actually an ancient treatment where you put these 3 stones across the chest. And I finally was like, I've got to do this treatment because the whole purpose of the treatment is to move all of this oxygen, flood all of this oxygen into the heart and move all of this meaning into the heart and move all of this blood into the heart. And it's like the way that you feel if you go drive in your car and you play that song that just makes you cry and you're like out on that country road and you just let yourself cry. That's the movement of the heart. And so this treatment that moves the heart, I put this treatment on her. And I'm like, to be honest, I was like, this is going to do nothing. She's going to tell me she doesn't, she's going to go right back into like explaining, pontificating her dad's like whole mental health history. And as soon as I put that last crystal on, this woman just goes, ah, ah, and the tears, she just let herself just let all of that move and just cried like a baby. And all of that intellectual pain was gone. And I couldn't believe, I was like, finally, she cried. And I could not believe, I mean, still, still, it's amazing every time. It's like, still, I'm like, this is amazing. I'm not like, oh, that's just normal that worked. I'm like, I'm still amazed every time. It's like amazing that somebody wrote about this treatment like 100 years ago or whatever, 500. I don't know when it was first written about, but like that could come through. I could tap into that. And then the movement of the Tao, timelessly could touch her through that and make that change. So um that was a great treatment where like I know it was the laying on of those stones and the power in those stones that finally got that change to move. And she was so much better after that. Honestly, it was like her whole body softened, her whole body opened, her emotional body was much more available. Like it wasn't just a one-time thing. Yeah.
Fascinating. What should people who are interested in healing and awakening be doing with stones and crystals?
Well, let's see. One thing that you can do is if you are interested in more knowledge, it is good to get more knowledge on it. Like whet your appetite, like take a class, take a training. Like there's a lot of great information out there that's old information mixed with kind of like this technological advances that we have in vibrational medicine. So I don't think it's a bad idea to like dive back in and learn more or learn more for the first time. But another thing that I say, like if you don't want to do that, get some of the stones that you're just vibrationally attracted to. Maybe 4 or 5 stones that you just like love, minerals, crystals from the store, whatever it is. And then I tell people to put those on a windowsill that they are around a lot, or on their nightstand, or even on the ledge where they do dishes, someone that they're going to see those every day. And I tell them just in the morning to just pick one of them, just totally intuitively, and just keep it in their pocket and keep it close to them and keep it on their desk and keep it in their car and just let it be like their sidekick for the day. And then at the end of the day, you put it back up with the other ones. And the next day, you just look at them and be like, what do I need today? And you pick the one that you need today and just let it be completely intuitive. Let it be your sidekick for the whole day. If you just keep doing this, you will gain a relationship with these stones and you'll start to see, oh my God, this one was like, this one's decharging me. That one's like grounding me. This one is like helping me access my memories, but it's all going to unfold in that process of like building that relationship. And as long as you let it be intuitive when you pick them out, it's weird because you'll look back and you'll realize, oh, that's why I picked that one on Tuesday, because that was all about to happen. And you can learn about them that way, just doing like the windowsill trick.
I love that.
The
And it's
side.
like you're really just using your own intuition in the body. You intuitively know what your body needs. Even if you
Yeah,
don't even know the meaning of the stone, it's just you're going to be drawn to what you need.
Totally. And honestly, the best, what opens the door to healing all the time, whether you're the healer or the healee, it's like the first thing that opens the door is openness. And you can call it curiosity, but like it's openness. If you're just open, if the healer's open, it's like the most important quality a healer can have. If the person's open, like I'm just open to trying this, just open to seeing, like it's like the universe can't help but respond with healing. It opens the floodgates of healing. So just openness is a big key.
Yeah. Now, at the Upper Clarity School of Stone Medicine, you teach students stone medicine. Could you share a bit about this school for those who may be interested in learning more?
Sure. I founded the Upper Clarity School of Stone Medicine in like, I guess 2013. So maybe like 11 years ago or so. And I was just teaching to small groups after doing like some really serious study in Taoist stone medicine. I started to teach to little small groups, and then we had these amazing little classes and in person. And then in 2018, I tried my first online class, and now people from all over the world can take a class with me and learn more about this ancient stone medicine mixed with these kind of future crystal technologies. And I teach classes that are for everyday people who are curious and open. And I also teach classes for healers, like who are like, this is kind of what I already do. Now, how do I incorporate stones and crystals in a way that's going to be meaningful and effective and also magical and spiritual and also grounded? And so you can take all kind of classes. We do live online certification courses where you can do a whole 9-week training and become certified. And then we do other classes that you can take anytime or start anytime on special topics, like how to work with entities in possession with stone medicine, or how to work with the 8 extraordinary meridians with stone medicine, or simple ones like how to work with emotional healing with stone medicine. So it's basically like a kind of a little smorgasbord of classes that people can pick the right one for them.
Oh, that's wonderful. And what is the website?
Upperclarity.com.
Oh, okay. And we'll make sure to put that in the podcast notes as well so that people can just click on it and find you. What do you wish to see for the future of stone medicine and crystal healing?
Wow. What do I wish to see for the future? Gosh, I'm looking down at my crystals right now. I have so many crystals on my desk as I'm speaking to you, and I'm looking down to them. And I think that what I wish for the future is that people will get the gift of the awakening of the heart. And in that, they look at the crystals and they have this like deeper love, like this deeper care and this deeper intimacy, and see them as these precious treasures and relate to them with sacredness, and that's what I wish that we get more of that as we go forward.
It's been such a pleasure to have you as a guest today. I'm going to ask you one more question. What do you think is the meaning of life?
What do I think about what?
What do you think the meaning of life is?
Oh, the meaning of life. Um, the meaning of life. The meaning of life. I will go with, so there's going to be a point where, what they say about meditation, which is so beautiful. They say meditation is any time that the meditator is gone. It isn't any moment or any form where the meditator disappears, and I think that is maybe the meaning of life, is that there's a place and a time when we get to actually just be present with life. And when that meditator disappears, like the question is gone and we're just present with life. So that is what I think for today.
Oh, I love it. It's been such a pleasure to have you as a guest. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge with all the listeners.
Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you next time.
As we conclude this episode, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your presence within my community. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, comment, like, and share this podcast episode. Join my free newsletter in the show notes and receive new podcast episodes delivered right to your inbox. If you resonate with the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and are motivated to embark on a journey of personal healing, I invite you to connect with me at drlottie.com. Together, we can pave a path towards transformative healing in your own life.